Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Just before satsang started, I read a bit of an article in The Nation about the Obama administration's flirtation with war with Russia and the misinformation and the misinformation campaign that it's based on, definitely echoing the lead up to the war on Iraq in terms of misinformation and misinformation campaigns. And the main misleading story that's being put out by the White House, according to this article, is that somehow Putin was the aggressor in the Ukraine, whereas the Nation article says he's really just being responsive to being shelled from the Ukraine. I don't really know what's true or what's not true. But anyway, most people, especially in this country, and especially younger people, are really wrapped up in self-interest. Most people, many people, spend their days thinking about me, myself, and I. My relationships, my money, my career, my next move, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? Does he, she, or it like me? Worrying about your psychology and worrying about fixing yourself or presenting yourself. And most people's days are made up with those kinds of concerns. It's just simply the case that if you are wrapped up in self-interest, even if you're doing spiritual practice, if you're doing it with an attitude of self-interest, over concern about yourself and under concern about anything else, and I wouldn't even say concern, I would just say under interest in anything else. If you're doing practice that way or living that way, you are not interested in God. If you're not interested in other people, except your few chosen ones, if you're not interested in what's happening in the world, if you're not interested in anything other than you and your small circle of concerns, even if you're doing a lot of spiritual practice, you are not interested in God. It's possible to do practice from a completely self-interested point of view. It'll eventually lead to something else, that's true. Right? Even, if you do practice consistently for years on end, even if you start out extremely self-interested, you'll end up somewhere else. But don't fool yourself. If you spend your day talking about yourself and thinking about yourself, and maybe one or two other people, you are not interested in spiritual life. You are not interested in God, and you are not interested in waking up. You are doing spiritual practice for some other reason. It will undermine your self-interest, even if you approach it with self-interest. But that's just the fact of your existence, if that's how you're conducting your life. I was thinking yesterday about something that my family and I used to do together, and I don't know who I was talking to this about, but I think it was one of the only things we ever did together that was actually fun. Where someone wasn't feeling dragged along and who didn't want to be there. And that is, we would sit in public places and look at other people. Right. We would just sit on the steps of a museum or sit in a restaurant tables outdoors or something, or library steps or anywhere, where there was a lot of people, and we would just watch people, and we would tell stories about them. We would observe how people moved and how they looked and what they were doing and how they were carrying themselves. And based on some observations, we would have a lot of fun sort of guessing what their lives were like and telling the story of their lives, right? And I wonder if many people do that. When I was a kid, I just thought that was what you did. Especially if you lived in cities, of course. The spectacle of other people in cities is one of the main reasons to live in a city. You see how everyone else is dressing and acting, and you have contact with other people. In a city, you get to have intimate contact with random people. That's one of the pleasures of living in an urban environment, right? I don't know if people are more self-interested now than they used to be. I mean, maybe it's always been like this. But certainly among my students, and especially the younger people, there are people who spend their days totally self-interested. They don't read the news. They don't observe other people. They aren't curious about other people. They aren't curious about what's going on. They have no interests outside of a very small range of interests. And most of those interests are me, myself, and I. What I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and how other people are relating to me. That's a really, really small world. I have occasionally told a student that I wanted them to read the news every day, just as a way of getting someone out of that. And sometimes it's taken hold and sometimes it hasn't. But I would encourage everybody, as part of your practice, to take more of an interest in what's going on. You don't have to take a stand about anything. Right? That's not necessary. You don't have to even form an opinion. But to just look up from the hothouse that you're cultivating around yourself. To step out the door of that hothouse now and then and look and see what's happening, and just look at another person. Just look at other people and look at what's happening. This happens, I was talking to somebody the other day when they came for an office hour appointment. When people in the school get together, hook up, or are in long-term relationships or married or something like that, even people that have been together for a while, if they come to me and ask me about their relationships, one of the first things I'll ask is, well, what do you like about this other person? And 90% of the time, the answer is not about the other person. I like the way she makes me feel. I feel anxious around him or her. I this, I that, I the other. And then I say, that's not about the other person, that's about you. If you just look at the other person, what do you see? What do you notice about the other person? If we don't notice other people, if we're not curious about other people, basically when we have a relationship with another person, we are relating to our fixations. That's what's happening. We're not really relating to another person. We're relating to our fixations. Sometimes people are so wrapped up in themselves that they'll be talking to me, and the minute I start talking back, they blank out. They're back in their shell of me, myself, and I. They have something to say about themselves, and then when I respond, they're back in their shell, and I can see they're barely even listening. So most of the time, if you are not really able to step out of your iPod and really experience another person, you are relating to your fixations. That's what you're relating to. You're having a love affair with your own fixations. You're having a student-teacher relationship with your own fixations. You're having friendships with your own fixations. And you are not experiencing intimacy. Even if you're having sex, even if you're spending every minute with another person, if you are not able to actually be curious, if you've lost the capacity to be curious about another person and to see them as something outside of you and an object of interest, an investigation, even if you're spending every minute with them, you're not having a relationship with them and you're not having any intimacy with them. Intimacy is with other people as they actually are. Intimacy with a projection is a phantom of intimacy. So I would encourage everybody in the Kula to try your best to actually look at other people. How are they? What is happening? Try to get out of your self-interest, because it's absolutely stifling. It's stifling to be around people who are 99% self-interested. And it's stifling your lives to actually live that way. You have relationships with people to get things out of them. That's not a relationship with another person. That's a relationship with a fixation. You have a relationship with someone to prove something about yourself. That's not a relationship with that person. It's a relationship with you. So you might as well just get a blow-up doll, paint your own face on it, and have at it.
Go fuck yourself.
Exactly, go fuck yourself. You might as well, because that's what you're doing anyway. You know, the other person's just kind of some excuse for you to get your karmic, fixated, compulsive needs met. And the same with the world. Everything that happens in your day becomes the same excuse for you to continue your fixations, instead of just being there and experiencing things. And the fact of the matter is, when you do come out of your iPod, your self-interested hothouse, it's scary. You're not in control. You're not setting the terms. There's real intimacy. There's more sensation. There's more input coming into you. Right? You're not all shut down with your blinders on and your narrow little track, living in some cartoon fantasy world with only 256 colors. So when you really come out of your shell, you have to experience things in a more colorful, sensorily rich way. And it can feel overwhelming for people that are used to living in a step down, grayed out fantasy world. This also happens when we live our lives on drugs. So there's many students who started the practice being on drugs all the time, on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication or something or other, pot, Ritalin, Adderall. Whatever your situation is, anything that is blocking your intimacy and your immediacy with life, unless you have a bona fide mental illness, in which case you would, go off the rails if you weren't taking some sort of medication, which is the situation of none of my students. But any medication that you're taking or anything that you're doing, or any way that you're relating, your self-fantasy might be your favorite drug. Your urge to get your needs met might be your favorite drug. Your compulsion to make other people love you and prove that you're worthy might be your favorite drug. All of those things cut down on our level of intimacy and immediacy and clarity and our ability to see things as they really are. And you cannot practice. You cannot expect to wake up if you're taking any of those drugs. You just won't. So you have to make conscious efforts to give yourself a break and step outside of that iPod, whatever it's made out of. And remember, you have to remember, you are here. You're really here. This is shocking to some people. This is actually your life. You are actually here. You are in it. You are living it now. It is not going to happen 8 weeks from now or 8 years from now. You are not building up to existence. You actually exist right now. This is your life right now. Other people exist. We're so far from worrying about being compassionate. You know, we aren't even at our own existence yet. This is it. You're living now. Every minute that you spend caught up in your fantasy about yourself and your fixations is a minute you're spending not really being here in your own life, which is actually happening. It's like you're living like this, with your head turned away and your hand blocking the sun. Right? And you're just like mumbling to yourself. To spend some time sitting outside somewhere watching people. Look at the people you're actually with. Oh my God, for some of you that's terrifying. If you feel scared at the idea that you would actually just look at the people that you actually live with, you know something's going on here. How many people here feel a little scared at this idea? A little halfway scared? Yeah? Yeah. What? Existing. You're here. They're here. We're here. And it goes by fast, yeah. So from now on, I want you to remember that you're here and that you're in a world. The world is not made out of your worries about the decisions that you need to make. The world is not constructed out of your concerns about what's going on in your head or the things you're trying to achieve. So go to the beach and just watch people. Or go to First Friday and find a step and just sit on it and watch people. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.